Very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mwangu Shampagi. And tonight we'll be discussing elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Some people have been joking and saying the opposition won that election and the opposition is protesting the result of that election. A bit of background, the Democratic Republic of Congo to Uganda's western border, I think possibly shares the longest stretch of borderline with Uganda, and that highlights how important it is for this country. Whatever political developments happen in that country are very important for this country. The Uganda People's Defense Forces, deployed in the Democratic Republic of Congo from about 1996 and withdrew in 2003. Uganda still has to deal with a court case, actually to pay compensation of $10 billion US to the Democratic Republic of Congo after that ruling of the International Court of Justice because of alleged plunder of resources of the Congo. And there was an inquiry in this country, two parallel inquiries, one by the United Nations. There was a special commission that investigated those allegations, and a local commission of inquiry that was established by this government, chaired by Justice Porter, David Porter, I think. It's a country of 81 million people. Out of those, about 18 participated in the elections that returned. That has the Electoral Commission announcing Felix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo. He is 55 years old. He lost to, he won defeating Fayulu and Shadare, the other opposition candidates that contested that election. But it is important because President Joseph Kabila agreed after long negotiation to release power after 18 years in power. Let me introduce the panel that I have tonight. It's a panel of all journalists, starting with, at the extreme end, Dismas Nkunda. He's Chief Executive Officer at Atrocities Watch.
Thank you for having me, Charles.
We have Onapito Ekomoloit. He's Legal and Corporate Affairs Director at Nile Breweries AB InBev.
Good evening, Charles, and good evening, viewers.
We have Rosebel Kagumire. She's a blogger and a journalist.
Thank you, Charles. Happy to be here.
And Kasim Kaira is Azam TV's Great Lakes Bureau Chief. Very nice to have you.
Good evening, viewers, and thanks for having me, Charles.
Kaira used to work for the BBC before and spent years reporting in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Speaks how many Congolese languages in the Congo do you speak?
About 7.
About 7 in the Congo alone.
In the East, yeah, in Congo.
In Eastern Congo.
Yes.
Very nice to have you. Let me start with you. I think the election in the DRC is very important because of its history. That country still has the largest and longest United Nations peacekeeping mission in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That they're ending. Kabila came in after his father was assassinated. So he just inherited that seat. He's been hanging on it. He was supposed to do these elections 2 years ago. He played games and was not, the election was extended, but I think he couldn't play it any longer. He agreed to have that election, and the election has happened. And the results look like and Ugandans and other people all over the world are debating them. Did you see it coming out the way it came out?
No, to be honest, I didn't see it going this way. But having heard what the outcome has become, I think I see that it was a calculated move. It looks a very clearly scripted move that is more about Kabila's self-preservation than anything else. First and foremost, as Kabila's self-preservation, but also now next, to see a sort of a smooth transition in Congo that would have nothing to do with Kabila, if you think so, but then now to bring in an opposition that might be able to unite the country. Seeing what is there at the moment, given the resistance by the Catholic Church, to the results that have come out, it's still unfortunate. But I think for the first time in the country's history, since they became independent in 1960, they have a chance to be able to have a transition of leadership from one person to another, and then coming from opposing sides, because we've had transition of power, well, through war, because Mobutu was ousted. There was a war that pushed him out. Kabila Laurent Desile came in, stayed for the short time that he did until he was assassinated, and then his son took over. But now, if we get Felix Tshisekedi, it will be the first transition, so it will be very historic for the country to have a smooth transition where we would have it from one leader to another. But I think it guarantees Kabila as well as safety, which I think is quite crucial in this particular sense. Because a lot of situations you've had a post-election situation that brings in a new leader, and then the witch hunt starts. So you have to look at it in the context of, can we have a leader that can actually stay in power or stay in the country post-power? One of the countries that I feel so proud about, despite having so many problems, a country that we are having issues probably at the moment with, is Burundi. You get to Burundi, I've been to the Burundian parliament, and you have almost 4 or 5 past leaders existing as life senators, because that's what they did constitutionally. Once you stand down as a president, you become a life senator. So you are there as an advisor, seeing all these presidents being able to stay in the country, looking at a new leader, running the country. There's nothing that is as good as that. You go to our neighbors, you go to Tanzania, you go to Kenya even. You look at Daniel Arap Moi now being the very old statesman that he is. You look at Mwai Kibaki in his old state, but he's still there. In an advisory capacity, but he's still there. So we are sort of tired of a situation where you have a change of government, and then the next thing
and everybody flees.
The family is fleeing, the people are all spreading out in all places. So this is one historic opportunity that is there, depending on how it plays out beyond now, because I think the situation is still developing, and therefore we can't be sure what would happen. But I think here is an opportunity that, if taken with caution, could actually lead to something good. I'm a bit unconscious or uncomfortable about the SADC suggestion at the moment, which is about a government of national unity. Why push for democracy and then push us into a government of national unity?
Rosbel, the numbers, Felix got 7,051,013 votes, which gave him 38.6%. Martin Fayulu got 6,366,732 votes, 34.8%. The gap between them is less than 1 million votes.
Yeah.
Then Shadari, who was actually Kabila's handpicked guy to take over, got 4 million, which is 23.8%. The Catholic Church argues and says these results do not represent the wish of the people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. There are 2 provinces that haven't voted yet. The combined number of votes coming from those 2 is greater than the number of votes separating these 2 candidates.
Yeah.
But the president is going to be inaugurated anyway, 20th January. Do you think this might lead Congo back into the troubles that it has had over the last so many years?
I don't think so. I think this is a very important step, like Kaila has talked about. It's very important that we had an election where at the end of the day it is 2 opposing parties opposing the election, challenging what is happening in the election result. That in itself is very major. The fact that Kabila's backed candidate even came, way lower than had been expected. But what is worrying is the hand of Kabila in the person who happened to be announced as the top. And you have to remember, this is the same guy who had been asked to actually be part of the kind of electoral commission of DRC. So it's very interesting how that kind of setup, you can say it's a bumpy transition, and I think all ideas should be welcome at this point, especially looking at a good percentage of the country, those provinces didn't vote, and they are opposition strongholds. Everybody knew that. So how do you bring a country together, even when you have one with such, you've been announced to have one with such a small margin, when you know the opposing candidate, their stronghold, did not vote at all. So it's the contestation is going on, and SADC is talking about a national unity, vote recount. Many people are coming in with different ideas, but I think that is a very important process in itself. Like these ideas come because this was not necessarily a very convincing win. And for a country that is so fragile, it's not only for Uganda. We are talking about SADC. This is a country that shares a border with most countries in Africa, in terms of numbers. So any instability, they affect so many countries, including us who are hosting as many refugees from DRC. So it's very important that all these ideas, the Catholic Church, SADC, especially African, we have seen people like the French foreign ministers and all these Europeans talking. That is not the necessary voice we need to hear. We need to hear African bodies actually being on top and being together with the different groups and trying to hammer out a better way forward for the country.
Honor, one of the major things that has been in the news since the results were announced is that picture of President Yoweri Museveni and this president-elect Felix Tshisekedi at a meeting. We understand that meeting took place in October here in Kampala, way before Tshisekedi won the election. Uganda has not even accounted, the government of Uganda has not accounted to this country for the soldiers we lost defending Joseph Kabila's father, and after he died, that confusion that led to Kisangani 1 and Kisangani 2, where Ugandan soldiers clashed with Rwandan soldiers, nobody knows who exactly died from this country, for this country, to gain what. In terms of the Ugandan context, which is a very rich and old history, what does this mean, this confusion?
Just first, before, I just love the subplot in the DRC elections, and which is very informative about power. The fact that Tshisekedi's father spent his entire life trying to become president and failed, and his son on first attempt succeeds, actually plays the, I think the first lady said, the hand of God. I don't want God that. I think there's something about destiny in politics. Some people will actually struggle and never get it, but some people just take one shot and get it. That's one thing. As for Uganda, of course, I think on a light note, it proves what the president says, that the opposition reads. I think now in DRC it looks to be true that the opposition has reached, which is very interesting. I don't want to answer your question, but I find that there's a lot of things that do not add up. All the time we are told incumbents reach, the incumbent is candidate. Now here, someone who is not officially part of the incumbent wins. So it doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't Kabila have used his power to make Shadari win? That would have been the easiest thing for him. So I don't know where, I haven't seen the numbers, I don't know where the Catholic Church is getting this argument, but for me I think it's just really bad faith in a lot of actors. The church for long, I believe, was saying Kabila is the problem. Now they have knocked out Kabila, but they still are not even happy with Tshisekedi. So what do you want? So I think some of these unnecessary holier than thee preaching by the church and by a lot of organizations actually doesn't help the DRC question. They should just allow what the Electoral Commission has announced. At least it's not Kabila's man. That's a good beginning.
Dismas, there is an argument. One of the things that actually is stoking a lot of this controversy is that Tshisekedi and Kabila reached a deal. And since he was announced winner, Felix has been saying very nice things about Joseph Kabila.
Yeah,
and people are thinking, I hear things like Kabila negotiated to become prime minister, to maintain the Ministry of Defense and other key ministries. I don't know how much true this is.
The truth is, what is known and has not been refuted anywhere is that Kabila actually had a negotiation with Tshisekedi in terms of him, what my brother Kaida was speaking about, letting him leave, remain in the country, not to be pushed anywhere. The discussion happened at a point in which they discovered that even if they added up the votes, on a Shadari wouldn't make it. So they had to find a compromise candidate. And the Lamuka coalition, that Lamuka coalition, the one which is for the opposition, was much more an adversarial party to the Kabila presidency, that if they had been allowed to win, it would have been very difficult to manage them.
Lamuka is the one of Fayulu.
Of Fayulu, yeah. So then it was easier for them. They knew Tshisekedi, they can speak to him. He is a person who is a little bit more amiable in terms of being soft and not taking the hard stance in terms of trying to revenge if he doesn't take power. And he had gotten some votes. So it was only a question of time to tweak the little that he had and make sure that he emerges as president and can safeguard the future of Kabila and his...
Can that be guaranteed? Because I have seen a lot of analysts attempting to use that and say, no, what is happening in the DR Congo is that Kabila has done what Vladimir Putin did in Russia, brought in Medvedev, to be a puppet president for a short period of time when Putin became prime minister, and then when the time was right for him, once he was able to maneuver the constitution, come back into that election. And my own personal argument has been that is extremely alien and wrong context to look at negotiations like that on the African continent. One, yes, is the storied history that Tshisekedi, his father, who died in 2017, Etienne. Yes, he died in 2017. He had spent almost all his life in opposition. He attempted on three occasions, he agreed to be prime minister for Mobutu, his biggest opponent. Yes. And those were, by the way, in quick succession. I think 1991, 1992, about 1997. Yes,
yeah,
about
just before he was.
Yes, before he was overthrown. Can a negotiation? Yes, all of you can come in. Can a negotiation be guaranteed that Kabila will actually have his cake and eat it at the same time?
Which I'll leave that the expert, but I'm still not convinced that the argument that Kabila fixed for Tshisekedi is very plausible, you know? Because I believe if Kabila is that powerful because he controls the army, the electoral commission, he would still have fixed his man, and the result will be the same.
That's different because.
So my view, I really see that the Catholic Church or whoever wanted a particular candidate to win, which is okay. And now they don't want to believe that anybody else can win.
Could have one. Yeah, I think I agree with Echo in terms of that. The only dilemma is this. Kabila left it too late to allow or to bring in Shadari. The image that Congolese had of Shadari was this interior minister who was coming and with repressive policies, bringing in the tear gas and the police and the army. Okay. The image that was there 2 months to an election to allow for a person to paint their own image, it was very difficult for Shadari to come out of that cloud. Okay. So it was a definite clear. Go back to Kenya, 1997. Daniel Arap Moi is in a serious fix. He leaves it too late to come and bring Uhuru Kenyatta then. Announces him, and then it was just nearly impossible for him to ever make it. So by this time, it was actually clear. He wanted to get a clean way out. That's why I said it was just Kabila's self-preservation. That is one thing that is quite important. And looking at the two candidates, Martin Fayulu comes in as a revenge candidate. Because he's coming in with all the force, we shall follow the man, we shall take him to the courts and so on. So for Kabila, the choices are sort of very clear. In case he was looking at a person who they could work with, this was a big potential with the person with whom they could have worked with. Going away from that, in terms of reaching any negotiated settlement, instead of looking at the Russian Putin-Medvedev situation, I take it to Angola. With José dos Santos and his defense minister. That's where now Kabila needed to get adequate guarantees. Because he brought in a defense minister that he trusted. First year, his son is in prison. His daughter has lost the biggest oil company that she was running for years.
So this is for Angola.
For Angola.
Yes.
And that is just next door. Kabila's own security you have known for years. Almost 80% is Angolans.
Yes.
20% is Zimbabweans, and then just the remaining small cream are the Congolese. This says a lot that actually the message is very clear.
The two biggest foreign neighboring countries that have a lot of sway in the Democratic Republic of Congo, it's
Africa.
No, Uganda on this other side, and
Angola
to
the other side. Yes.
And South Africa.
Yes, South Africa after comes in.
Yes.
Because South Africa's interests are largely economic. But in terms of political life, in terms of social life, just like Eastern Congolese do all their dealings with Uganda, Western Congolese deal with Angola.
With the Angolans, yes.
And it's a very close
to add to what Kasma said, if you look at the manner in which you are an opposition leader, let's use an example of Uganda. You are an opposition leader, you win, and then you start saying, the man whom you wanted to remove from power, he's a statesman. I think he's you heap all the kind of praise.
But this, given, just before you come in, the context I was giving of Felix's father, Etienne, working with Mobutu, isn't that coming from the same spirit? Because 3 times, Mobutu jailed Etienne.
Yes.
For years.
Yes.
Actually, Felix and his mother went with the father to house arrest for many years before Mobutu felt soft and allowed the mother and Etienne and the children to get out of the country and go and get an education in Belgium.
Yes, for me, I think Tshisekedi's strategy is maybe the script for dealing with strongmen, and in a confused situation like DRC. Because if Fayulu was that poor in his strategy, in his thinking, that you can just knock out Kabila with force and what have you, they failed for a long time. So the man needs to get a soft landing. Even if you want to try him later, first give him a soft landing. So I think Tshisekedi struck a good deal. You know?
I was checking out on Fayulu. Fayulu doesn't join politics seriously until 2006.
2006.
He is a business executive.
Yes, he gets in, he wins a seat in the National Assembly, but his party has only 3 representatives, including himself. So 2 members. How did he jump to lead the opposition coalition?
I think we are looking at, first of all, the parliament is pro-Kabila, like the majority right now.
Yes,
who won is
he's actually extended his...
yes. So it still gives him a lot of power. And when I was looking at actually political transitions, what could happen for Congo, I looked at a political transition like Ethiopia. It might be different because the leader died, but the party was still the strongest party. But the person leading that was just, you know, a puppet, you know, figurehead, while the strings were pulled by totally different people. So if the president who has been announced will be that, it could also have different repercussions with legitimacy issues. And that's what we saw with Ethiopia, having a leader who would not satisfy the population. All over, protests broke out in Ethiopia. Every different province in Ethiopia was protesting. So it's also not a done deal in terms of legitimacy. In terms of legitimacy, that Tshisekedi can actually, you know, concretize having been seen to be, you know,
This is the math, though. This is the math, Charles. If you look at the strongest power brokers, because UDPS is the oldest and largest opposition party.
Yes, which is the one of
Felix Tshisekedi. His father built up a strong base, like Eko was saying. He came up, he did all the work, and who is benefiting now is his son. But here's the situation.
But that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not bad, actually. It's not bad.
Ona said it, that
you can try
the
so
guy
many
tried so many times but couldn't get it, and now the son has picked it up.
Yeah, but here was my math. Because a lot of the protests that bring down governments are in Kinshasa. Because of the size of the country, demonstrations in Goma, for example, the M23 at some point in 2012 came and took over Goma. It is the regional capital there. Life almost came to a standstill only in the east. And after a short time, but life was going on in Kinshasa. You get to Kinshasa, you don't get a feeling of what is happening elsewhere in the country. You see beautiful streets, you know, marked streets, life that is actually organized. Until, of course, you go to Matonge, then you start getting the other side of the life. But here is the situation. In case of protests that would bring down the government, the UDPS has a majority control in terms of that area. Martin Fayulu, unfortunately, is an unlucky candidate because despite his joining politics in 2006, he has been out of the limelight, and he was an agreed candidate in Switzerland in a meeting that all opposition parties held, including Tshisekedi, who was part of it. So until Tshisekedi felt that from this meeting, since Bemba was out of the picture, since Katumbi was out of the picture, this was the opportunity now for the biggest party in opposition to pull the numbers. The moment he realized that they had picked up on Martin Fayulu, and they were picking on Martin Fayulu simply because he had less luggage. He had less luggage in terms of problems. Because if you are talking about the father and you're saying now you don't want a monarchy, the father died and then the son took over. But all of a sudden you have a man who is coming, who is new into this. So he was a clean candidate that could be easily worked with. The multinationals would pick up on him because the foreign countries are looking at that. But also Kabila has pulled off something that has been very, very crucial. The fact that the Congolese election has been funded fully by the Congolese government. The moment you don't have foreign funding, all this noise now that we are hearing right now is limited, is muted, because the foreigners did not put the money directly. So whether they put money in MONUSCO in terms of security or civic education, that's different. But in terms of the direct election, they did not put the money. And that has reduced. Kabila postponed the elections in 2016, and his argument was, we do not have enough funds to be able to run the election. In 2017, he had run out of options, but he's also looking at where he can play and get a safe landing. So that's why I'm saying that Tshisekedi, in all circumstances, as of now, is a better candidate just for the maths of it. That in case of demonstrations,
Yep.
you have Kinshasa control because he comes from there, he commands support. For position of prime minister already, he suggests Vital Kamerhe,
Yeah.
a former speaker of parliament, a former electoral commission. He comes from the east. Very popular. In 2011, he caused Kabila a lot of trouble. So you see that the moment you get the prime minister, the people in the east now will feel, and the eastern question cannot be ignored in any way in Congo as of
We
now.
will discuss the Eastern
So it
question
was also
after
a
the-
natural alliance of orphans.
So people should become orphans fast.
So often shouldn't mourn so much. There's life after all. After we'll discuss the Eastern question
Too big
after a very
orphans.
short commercial break. And these are the reasons. One is that can you discount the role of people like Jean-Pierre Bemba? He was acquitted by the International Court of Justice, the
International Criminal
Court. So he should be a player, even if he was blocked from participating in this last election. What is the role of people like Moise Katumbi, who also commands quite a large following? And for people who, I think I listened to Ugandans discussing Congo, like this extreme backwater. And what Kasim was talking about, Kinshasa doesn't look anything like Kampala, to be honest. I think you need to collapse 5 Kampalas to get one Kinshasa. The only-
Someone would
Oh,
did something.
Yes, no, there are things that were done in that country. It's dysfunctional to the east, but the other side, someone can be comfortable. I think Kabila was comfortable.
And they
for a
have
long
good
time.
music at
Eh?
the same time.
Let's take a break. We'll pick up this discussion in a moment. For the blood of Ugandan soldiers who died in the Democratic Republic of Congo and haven't been accounted for by this government so many years after we withdrew in 2003, April 2003, I think.
Yes.
When we started the withdrawal from the Democratic Republic of Congo, after Uganda deployed in 1996, contributed to the overthrow of Mobutu Sese Seko, and was involved deeply when there were 6 countries on Kabila's side, and then 5 countries on the other side. Yes,
It was 11
oh,
countries,
yes, 11 countries involved in the Democratic Republic of Congo at the same time.
Yes.
We will continue the discussion on the elections in that country. But let's just listen to 2 clips from these 2 leading contenders. I mean, the 2 contesting parties, Felix and Fayulu.
I know how many of you find it hard to accept, but I say with sincerity, I pay homage to President Joseph Kabila, President of the Republic. Today we must no longer consider each other as adversaries, but rather as partners in democratic change in our country.
To all those who learned of the truth of the ballot boxes, especially to Congo's National Bishops' Episcopal Conference, Senko, and the Church of Congo, through your historical observations, we ask you to reveal to the Congolese people and to the whole world the name of the person who really was our people's choice. We reject categorically the result published by the Election Commission President.
There you have it, Felix Tshisekedi and Martin Fayulu. It's Kaira who pronounces them properly. Mate Fayulu. The Eastern question. And I'll start with you, Dismas. What does Eastern Democratic Republic, how does it fit into this equation? You know, the M23, I think...
Led by Dismas.
Eh?
You man, I was near arrested because of that.
Formerly led by this one, but not this one. Another one. I think are still resident in this city, in Kampala, or they were resident in
I think
in
they were.
Kampala.
They were.
They were resident. They were moved to a camp in Western Uganda, in Bihanga.
But they disappeared from that.
Some of them disappeared. Some of them were brought back. Going into this election, I was hearing a lot of talk and a lot of watch at the border that they were planning to go back because Kabila had breached the discussions they had.
Yes.
The talks they tried to do in Munyonyo here.
Yes.
No, first in Munyonyo here,
Yes.
led by Kionga,
Yes.
collapsed without a meaningful resolution. They held more talks in Nairobi.
Yeah.
I think they also breached when they sent some of their people to Kinshasa. Kabila which hunted them and killed some of them. So, Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo means a lot for Uganda.
Yes.
Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo is a critical question for Western Congo, which is Kinshasa. Does this get resolved by this election? What does it mean?
You see, even just the elections that have just taken place, Eastern Democratic, it's so funny, and it's Rosemary who did mention that they said Eastern part of Congo, they will vote after the election, even the president has been sworn in. What does that mean in terms of a person?
There are two provinces that did
yes,
vote because of Ebola, partly
because part of Ebola. But Ebola became convenient. I don't think it was a question of Ebola per se, because there's still movement within that part. So the question was, this is clearly, like she said, an opposition stronghold. So you can use the excuse of saying Ebola is a problem in this part so that you can exclude them from becoming part of the electoral process. And they agreed and said, okay, we'll differentize them, and they don't vote. They can only vote after the election is done. And then we'll count their votes, but they won't matter. You can imagine that even, what if they won, is it about 1.2? 1.2.
Yes, about 1.2.
1.2.
And the difference between these two guys is 684,000.
So what if that difference comes in for the opposition? Then the opposition would be able to get the percentages that are necessary for them to win the election. So the point I'm trying to say is that Kabila and Kinshasa, like Kaira says, they are so detached from, you know, there's no road connection between the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo and Kinshasa. So it's the only place where you have to either fly, but you can't connect. So everybody, if you go to the capital, you only have to have an air ticket. And how many people of that nature can get it?
Actually, they don't need air tickets. The things that fly in that part of the country, you ask for a lift. You just walk to the airstrip.
Yes.
And there are many in Eastern Congo.
Yes, yes.
You walk to the airstrip and find if there is a cargo plane that is leaving for Kinshasa.
And you sit in the cargo plane.
And you sit, yes, because that's what they use for.
You seem to have used it.
I have.
Okay. I did too.
So you understand. So DRC is clearly not an important part of what they think, and in particular this is caused by the different militia groups that are present, the presence of other foreign armies that are there, be it the rebels from Uganda, be it rebels from Rwanda. So it's a very complicated and very difficult place for the.
Charles, that's why for me, amidst all these noises from the church, France and the rest, the AU possibly, the decision not to examine the viability of Congo as a geographical entity, as a one political. I mean, if something does not work, why has there been no effort to at least try a referendum? For example, does Eastern DRC want to
secede?
I know the South Sudan experiment has soured an appetite for new states, but I see Europe has dismembered after the Cold War, and it's working. It doesn't mean that if something is small, I know there's this argument that you need to be big to succeed, but it doesn't follow. There are small entities that work.
Northern Ireland doesn't agree with Brexit.
Yeah,
They're still stuck.
So I think
still stuck with the United Kingdom.
Kabila is leaving without any attempt to exactly examine whether Congo is viable. His father died in the process, Mobutu died, and it's just a jungle that has never been connected by roads.
So do you want it to be annexed, or you
no,
want
it
it
doesn't
to
have to be annexed. I mean, one of the options should be it should become a separate state. So long as it's agreed without fighting mutually, then Africans, we just are trapped in what we say are colonial states. We condemn the colonial boundaries, but we don't want to do anything about it.
Well, Congo is not the largest country in the world.
No, but
it's one of the biggest. It's the size of Western Europe.
Yes.
But if you go to countries like Canada,
They are
countries
joined
like Russia
Yeah.
and China, they are larger in size.
Yeah,
India,
but I mean, but they are well governed. They are connected by infrastructure. This one is much of it is a jungle. So,
Rosbel, let me shift gear a little bit. This election, and if Felix is inaugurated as president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, will leave one country in quite a bit of a fix. I've seen a cartoon of someone asking for the remote to change, and I've seen a list. I've seen a list of countries that have had new presidents on the African continent. Uganda, and our deep involvement in managing or dealing with the politics of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that they're going through a transition at this stage. Does that ring? I mean, any warning shots for this country? Does that have any relevance for this country that we haven't had we're the only country that hasn't had a transition in this region.
Yeah, indeed, it is like a punch in our face. Like, you know, every Ugandan says, oh, you know, Congo is just a jungle, right? Then they pull off an election,
Yes.
and they manage whatever setup is going on right now. It has shown that they could manage an election on their own and try to have as many leaders and still come up with a result that could give them a transition that we've never seen ourselves. But that in itself, like, we have to look at ourselves, and in the closest, away from Congo, we are looking at what's happening in Sudan.
Yes.
You know, we are coming close at kind of, even Congo has averted that kind of trajectory by bringing in a new leader. When we were all scared, like Kabila is going to go in the footsteps of the big men in the region. And
Well, he tried and failed.
Yeah, well, but he has tried, but in the end agreed, accepted that he has to find another way to exist, right? And that's why we're talking about this. But even the transition in Congo has to force us to rethink how we have been engaging with Congo. You know, we have to rethink, because for a long time the presidents of the two countries, Kabila and Museveni, had a relationship which had been built on different fronts. So now you have
it was strained, sometimes it worked.
It will never be. It can never be like straightforward. Relationships are, you know, you work on them. But generally, there was never like outright hostility you know, like that goes and threatens the two countries. We had never been to that. But now, with the issues of Eastern Congo and our involvement in Eastern Congo, you know, once in a while you find soldiers, they say we saw Ugandan soldiers here, but we say we did not get there any minute, right? Like there are different ways we have to rethink our foreign policy with Congo, and we are very quick to say, but they are sending us refugees, but we are very slow to say what have we been doing in the last decade actually in that country. So we should be open for the new leadership, whoever comes to be the right leader, or whatever unit government or whatever they come up with. We should be rethinking our foreign policy.
Charles, I don't know what happened, but remember that Tshisekedi actually made a tour of the region even before he was elected. And he did meet Museveni. And the gist of their meeting was actually Museveni telling him, if you come to power, I need to know whether you'll allow me to deal with the ADF. That is part of the rebels that are in DRC. He did also meet with interestingly, with Raila Odinga. And after meeting Odinga...
Tshisekedi met with
Raila Odinga. And interestingly, so the shift was, I meet Museveni, then in Kenya he chooses that, the person I should speak to is Raila Odinga. And you know what Raila is doing currently with his machinations with the Uhuru.
He has a new role.
Yeah, a new role. So I do believe that he clearly understood what kind of foreign policy he needs to have in the region, and that the first person to go to, I'm surprised he didn't go to Kigali, but it's for obvious reasons. But then it clearly shows you how prepared he was in terms of him coming in. I think probably he had an air of understanding that Kaira maybe will let us know how that worked. If he knew that he was going to win.
Yeah, because that was critical preparation. To know who to meet in the region, what is critical. President Yoweri Museveni tried from day one in 2000, I think December 2000? December 2000 when Kabila Senior was assassinated? Yes. 2000.
2001.
Eh?
2000 December.
December 2000.
Kabila takes over in 2001.
Yes, shortly after that. He tried, and people who are close, watch politics in the region, to get Kabila under his wing. But Kabila was 28 years old at the time, but was very stubborn also. And I think I give it to him that he was able to hold power for 18 years in that country, because everybody thought this guy who used to live in Machindi...
Maybe if you had got under your wing, would still be in power.
People used to joke because President Kabila grew up, I lived partly in Makindye here. Yeah. He lived with his father in, he lived a bit in Tanzania. In Dar es Salaam. And then, but was able to hold power together. For a long time, he had not come. He would come to this country when they would meet in Kasese. Just across the border. I think 2 historic meetings that took place there, and at Moya with President Yoweri Museveni. He never really managed to get him under his wing. He kind of managed to keep the transition. But now you're facing a situation, Kasim, whereby Kabila is being referred to as a statesman simply because he's agreed to relinquish power.
We have
Yes.
lowered
What
the
does
bar.
that mean?
Well, I think the challenge actually is within the region. I mean, if you just look at the map of the region, the way the picture is painting, I think raises a lot of questions. But just allow me just briefly before I go to that, just to touch on the Eastern question, because there was something that was kind of itching me. Because Echo was talking about the idea of the possibility of secession. Because if it's not working, then why keep it together?
Echo, you're referring to Anapito.
Peter. Yeah, I'm using Echo so much, so sorry. When he referred to that,
It's a short for Ekomoloid.
Ekomoloid, yes.
I've used
Sometimes you
that
can say Ekomoloid and you pronounce it wrong.
Yeah, okay.
So sorry for using it. But with the Eastern question, now the dilemma is, for all the years that we've had leaders in Congo, all the way to the independence movements, I mean, with the Kasavubus, with the Murere wars, the Eastern question has always been at the heart of what Congo would be. I feel so disappointed that for 18 years that Kabila has been in power, he has failed to be able to unite the country. I mean, call him a statesman or whatever, but the idea that he has failed to bring about Congolese to feel themselves as Congolese. Because the surprising thing is, when you get to Congo, Congolese don't feel like Congolese. But get outside Congo, get to Belgium. I was in Brussels last week. You get to a place like Matonge, and Congolese are Congolese. So once they're out of the country,
They are
come here,
Congolese.
go to Cooper Complex here. Go to Cooper Complex. Find Congolese from whichever part they are. They are Congolese once they are here. Inside their country, the
Even
reality is coming.
whether you go to Dar es Salaam or go to Johannesburg, you'll find Congolese, and they're Congolese. They control territory.
But the problem is, once they're inside Congo, they are not Congolese.
So what do they become?
But let me ask you let me ask a question to you, Kasem. Did Kabila have it in him to actually hold sway all over that country? Because one of the reasons I was doubting his ability to influence the result of that election is that for the 18 years he was in charge, he was never fully in charge of that, of the entire country. And Kinshasa being where it is,
Yes.
and the country being as vast as it is, you can actually be comfortable ruling over Western Congo and
not
forget
bothering
about
them.
Eastern Congo.
But the problem is, he comes from the East, Charles.
Yes.
He hails from the East.
Yes.
And that for him, I think that is where
He's a failure.
There's no way you can explain, at least if there were efforts, you create an enabling environment. Kabila didn't have to go and sit there. For example, they were talking about having no highway that connects Goma to Kinshasa. And the fear has been, if
the
you
railway
build-
lines are built, they're in
No,
forest.
you have Chinese
The
who are
lines-
coming and building
Yes.
serious roads. A highway from Goma, for example. The east now is the most productive part of Congo. It's one place where you just grow. You've gone, Charles. You've seen the place. All of us, I think, have been there. You just throw rice and you come back to harvest. No weeding, no nothing. The eastern part of Congo could feed the entire Congo. You get to Kinshasa, food is absolutely expensive, both from South Africa, across the border in Congo, Brazzaville, and from as far as Lebanon and Paris. For people in Kinshasa, living a very expensive life, yet it could be very cheap if stuff could have been brought from the east. So for Kabila, he had 18 years that he could have made the effort at least to show that. The Congo problem is what brought Laurent Désiré Kabila. Going to Nyerere influencing President Museveni and then influencing Kabila to support the effort of the AFDL to go and move into Congo in 1996 and remove Mobutu. The idea was you had a country that needed to be together.
Yes.
You had people who are being referred to as Banyarwanda, the Banyamulenge, who are being thrown, who had been in Congo for centuries. They had an issue. They wanted to be Congolese. Congo, Eastern Congo right now, you still have about 4 groups that are major groups, leave alone the 40 militias, including the Raia Mtomboki, which is the most dangerous one now. But you get you have the ADF, you have the FNL, who are rebels fighting the Burundian government.
Yes.
You have the FDLR, who have started
fighting
attacking Rwanda now, going back to the period of 1996-1998. With all of that in place, if Kabila has failed, because showing the willingness is one thing, creating an enabling environment is another. So, I mean, the Eastern question, there is no way we can talk about secession because it will not answer the aspirations of the people in the East. They need to be Congolese. They just need an enabling environment that would allow them to do that. Okay. On your question about the regional leaders, I mean, you just look at the map. Next door, Uganda, President Museveni has been in power for the last 33 years.
This month.
And then the constitution now, with the removal of Article 102B, it has allowed him now to be able to continue forever. With the constitutional changes in Rwanda 2015, it allowed President Kabila, he could stay in power. President Kagame, my apologies. He could stay in power until 2034.
Only.
Up to 2034. You go to Burundi, President Nkurunziza changed the constitution, allowed him to run for what is the third term, but the second term in his interpretation. That allowed him to run for the third term, but now the constitution has even been reviewed to allow him to actually continue to govern as well for as long as the circumstances.
Though he has indicated he will not seek re-election.
Yeah, but indicated the public can ask him. The public opinion. If the public asks him,
it's a Medved.
Kabila started like that.
It's a Medved.
Kabila started like that.
Yes. And then he's
and now he's out. Yes.
So the only country here now goes to Kenya. Is Kenya now? You can see the way Uhuru Kenyatta is relaxed. He knows he's in his last term. By 2021, he will leave Ruto now to fight with Railas and stuff. But if you look at that particular map, the message now is clear. I touched on a little bit on Angola, and that is a point of caution. Because Dos Santos, after staying in power, he was one of the leaders in Africa that had stayed in power for so long. But he realized it was time to go. He looked for a smooth landing, the Moi-style smooth landing. He gets his Minister of Defense, who he trusted so much. They had fought together in their years. And then he brings him into power.
But they had also fallen out at some point. I don't know why he forgot that.
Where he fell out with the minister.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but what I mean is when he brought him in,
by the time
the camaraderie was, you can protect me, you will watch my back.
No, I think
I'm saying at some point he was out of cabinet.
Yes.
Then they rehabilitated him.
The
guy did not forget.
Yes.
So he did it.
But the idea was, I'm giving you the presidency. The presidency was bigger than staying out of cabinet.
Yeah, of course.
Because the moment he handed him the instruments of power. This was a moment for him to pay back. 1 year in, the daughter has lost the biggest oil company, being the boss. The son is in prison.
He's in prison.
So already that sends
But
sort
is
of
that,
a
is
worrying
that unique?
message now.
It's a thing I was asking about the context in which people have been analyzing the DRC elections. Angola is the latest example. You have Malawi and Zambia before that.
Yes.
Endorsed leaders turning against those who endorsed them.
But they were not related, they were not that close in terms of relationship.
Which is the question, people talking about Felix and saying his Kabila is playing puppet master with his victory. I think that's extremely suspicious for me, because if you look at Angola, you look at Malawi, you look at Zambia.
But Charles, let me ask you a question. Which is a better option for Kabila?
Which
is a better option for him?
I think
because one, like she said, he now controls the parliament. He has 288 MPs, members of parliament out of the 500. They're under his party. The second thing is that he was promised to be the speaker of the National Assembly. 3, and if it's some agreement which he has, and given the power that he has held over a long period of time, Tshisekedi is not stupid as not to allow him to maintain that as long as he himself is in power as the president.
That's something we need to watch. And the other thing we're not paying a lot of attention to is Kabila's age. He's in his early 50s.
Yes.
Yes, he's just, I think, cross
47.
47.
He's 47.
Yeah, 47. And the question is, if you release power of an African country, or of any country, and no, an African country especially, and you're still 47, what do you do with the rest of your life?
He's one of the richest presidents of the continent, if not the richest. That is one.
But the experience of Dos Santos means they can go after that wealth. So if Isabella has already lost control of the national oil company, the other Dos Santos, the son, is in prison. He was in charge of the national fund. What is that fund? Where the oil money is supposed to go. A sovereign fund. Yeah. Yes, he's in prison for manipulating that same fund. Wealth held by political leaders on the African continent, if they don't manage their politics well, can disappear.
But that's the reason,
overnight.
Charles.
Yes.
This is the reason I was saying he has put his faith in
Felix. Yes.
It's about faith. Call it blind faith or whatever. Call it blind faith or whatever. But it allows him a smooth transition. And that's why I wouldn't have wanted to see Kabila taking the positions of speaker or whatever. He needs just to start pulling out of this public life slowly and being able to start enjoying the money that he has raised over that period of time. So the risk is trusting Tshisekedi. But if it was about trust of the two candidates, he was much better off with Tshisekedi than he would have been with
But I think
Martin Fayulu.
it's also important
I
for
think-
Congo to have experiments. Look at I think Israel has that model where people become prime minister, then become minister, then become...
Well, someone will say Congo is not Israel.
But I'm saying they could have their own experiments where a president becomes the speaker.
I think like
and I think the
having a
Congolese
deal
also-
is one thing, but really how one president, like president-elect, comes into power and suddenly realizes, actually, I'm in this seat, right? Like,
I have
you
the
know,
power.
yeah,
I
that
actually have the power.
realization,
I
like,
can do this. Yes.
wow, I can do this.
Yeah.
It is,
And then especially
the,
when
the future is unwritten for a reason, and there's no guarantee that whatever is written on paper tomorrow will be the same thing.
The Congolese says we need to try. We need to try. And this is uncharted
but I think-
territory.
And
But that can be
Tshisekedi
tried.
But we
She's
have
a
it,
kid,
we have
he's
it in the
inheriting.
region.
I think Rosberg raises a very critical thing. If you have a country as fractured as the DRC, once Felix takes power, is sworn in, you have to balance a lot of interests.
Of course.
How do you appease a very powerful Catholic Church?
The person who is controlling parliament,
Yes. No, he's controlling parliament, that is one thing, but you have a very
Catholic Church,
powerful
yeah.
outside constituency called the Catholic Church.
Which has a lot of fun.
You have a West, the Western powers
They just go to the
that have
top,
egg on their
that's
face
just-
at the moment. Though some people are calling Felix also a candidate of the West. They have been calling him all sorts of names. But you have the West that has a lot of its interests. Europe, America, and the others. How do you show that you're consolidating your position in that country that has been beleaguered by corruption and looting since it was created? It's been looted. It was looted by the Belgians. It was looted by Mobutu. It was looted by Kabila.
and
now-
other and regional countries.
and
Yeah.
yes, it was looted by Uganda.
but Charles,
It was
but
looted by
Charles,
Uganda, by Rwanda, by Angola, by South Africa, by
Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe,
I
yeah.
think Zambia.
Yes.
Just
All
for
those
me, the
have-
question
Yes.
is, we tend to talk about power like it's something static. Power changes daily, and your influence changes
Except
daily.
in Uganda.
You know, no, even in Uganda, like the game changes daily. To be honest, so when we even say like Kabila's group has the parliament, how Kabila's own influence, once the parliament is in and realizes the president is different, there will be different buy-ins on and different games being played.
Floor crossing.
Yes.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, how much power will Kabila still be having?
Charles,
Even if he had
Sadek,
that
Sadek
deal.
has come with a solution, although I don't agree with it, just from a democratic point of view. The idea that you should have a unity government. Now, this happened in Congo because they are forgetting, the way Sadek is suggesting this, is forgetting 2002. Remember from the Sun City Accords?
Yes.
Kabila comes in, he gets to become president, he's maintained as president, you know, after all this pressure. Vice president is Azarias Ruberwa from the east. Vice president is Jean-Pierre Bemba from the west. Balance was expected to be that. In a transitional form, in a situation like that, that allows the people that have come in as candidates into those particular positions to position themselves for the next election. And it wasn't surprise, come 2006, the very people who are vice presidents were actually contesting against
him.
Against Kabila. And it became very clear. 2006, many people say that Jean-Pierre Bemba won the election.
Yes.
And when it came to 2011, when it was clear now that he had seen what had happened in the manipulations in 2006, the West, and actually you mentioned this, it's good I remember it before I forget it. The West was instrumental in getting rid of Bemba out of the picture in 2011 for the elections. Why? Because they knew he was a strong candidate. If he had won the 2006, as they say, the likelihood was now he had even much more support come 2011. What happens? ICC comes in. He's taken into custody. He's taken away for the next almost decade.
Yes.
He's out of the picture. What happens? The very same international community influences Jean-Pierre Bemba's release when they had
Just
got
before the
tired,
election.
when they had got tired of Kabila. This was part of the pressure. It wasn't before the it wasn't before the it was
Yes,
before the
this
election. But it was part of the pressure piling. When they brought Jean-Pierre Bemba out of prison,
But
they
Kasim,
knew
that was a
Kabila-
judicial system
Well,
of the International
well,
Criminal
Well,
Court.
the international community
We work
controls
there,
the
we work there. We know how international systems work.
But for
They
me,
brought
listen.
Bemba and they knew he would win. The Electoral Commission, Kabila goes in and plays the game.
Yeah.
Beats
Blocks
off
him
there.
out.
The next candidate was Moise Katumbi, who was Kabila's one-time very good friend as governor of Katanga. They fell out. The next thing is Kabila realizes this one has to be gotten rid of. He gets Moise Katumbi out. And that's where Martin Fayulu now comes in as the favorite candidate, as a revenge candidate. And this is how we find ourselves here.
Of some
Yeah.
loose parties.
For me, just the major question we need to look at is beyond discussing big men politics, what does this actually hold for the ordinary Congolese? What did they get from the government before? And as a person, a woman interested in women in politics, I wonder, when we have 1 million men's names we can throw on the table as actors in the politics of the country, where are actually half of that population? What happens to actual constituencies? We are talking about people on the ground. What did Kabila deliver for people? What did in terms of governance, and what can be built on to imagine a different Congo in 5 years?
Let me take some feedback from...
The ladies are largely queen dancers.
we need to take a commercial break, but let me take some feedback from some of our viewers. Someone says, I am disputing the panel on Democratic Republic of Congo on NTV 4 Thursday tonight. It can't be a competent panel without Asmani Bisika, Edgar Muvunyi Tabaro, Fabrice Rulinda, and I, and himself. We shall constitute our own people panel, and it shall air on radio or Cap International. No, actually, I had thought about asking Fabrice to come and be on the show earlier, but we became... couldn't.
Those are Congolese in Uganda.
Let me take a few more messages. And then someone says, debating how Africa can stabilize DRC for the good of Africa, that we should be discussing how Africa can stabilize DRC for the good of Africa. Joachim Buwembo gives an incisive treatise in the East African. So people should pick it up and read it for themselves and see what he's saying. Kabila's coalition has majority in parliament, 288 versus 144 for the opposition. And I will take one or two other messages. Let me see. I take them from here. Yes, I have a message from someone says, Isabella is defeating the incumbent, a sign of proper management of an election. Mobutu left, Kabila family has gone, all leaving Museveni, but Uganda is better governed than DRC. The biggest problem of DRC is poor leadership and governance and no change of presidents. Good evening, Inteja Sima. I think she's referring to Rosebell, not Isabella. And I also take a message. Someone says, sources say polling materials were not delivered in 3 villages. All Fayulu strongholds, apparently because of Ebola. This is from Malcolm Musime. Well, 2 provinces Malcolm didn't vote because the state declared an emergency in those areas. They couldn't hold elections there. They will hold their elections after the inauguration of the current. And WAF is watching us and says, how come the panelists are not saying anything about the heroic role the ordinary people played in the regime change process? Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll discuss just a bit of this and also discuss the controversy surrounding, yes, the Angule song. We'll be right back. You're still watching The Fourth Estate, and this is our last segment featuring Dismas Ngunda. We have Echo, Onapito Ekomoloit, Rosebel Kagume, and Kasim Kaira. It's an all-journalist panel. Someone said the panel is incompetent to discuss Congo, and then someone is saying, wow, very knowledgeable panel. Literally glued, being schooled in contemporary African politics. Carol, we haven't discussed a lot on the transitions in Zambia and Malawi, which would have given a lot more context to what is going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo related to what happened in Angola and the wrong context people have been using, taking it to Russia. And then someone else sent a message and says, Kabila's party is in control and Tshisekedi needs Kabila more than Kabila needs him to rule DRC. Kabila should have changed the constitution to a parliamentary democracy if he wanted to cling onto power. Fortunately, he did not, which is what a true statesman should do. Well, you realize that the numbers are all below 50. They don't have a law like the Ugandan one where you must have 50 plus 1 to be declared winner. All the candidates are below 50. Yeah. Though Fayulu has been arguing that he won 62% of the vote, and Tshisekedi got 18.9%, and Shadare got 18.5% of the vote. so he's the clear winner.
That's according to the Catholic Church.
That's according to the Catholic Church and Fayulu.
Fayulu should know that it doesn't matter who won, it's who is announced to win, who matters in Africa.
Waf was asking that we should have put context of the contribution of the local people, but I need us to shift gear and spend some time discussing, yes, because it's part of the Ugandan political phenomenon. Musician turned politician, he still does both, does politics and music. Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu adopts a religious song to carry a political message, and some people think it's going to be the anthem as we run towards 2021. Others are saying a few born-again church leaders have complained about the adoption of the song. This controversy, what does it mean? There's a beer called Ngule.
Yes.
I don't know who produces it.
It's Uganda Breweries.
It's produced by Uganda Breweries, not Nile Breweries.
Do we have a clip of that song?
Yeah. The producer can check. We should have a clip of it. I was seeing today the Kenyans have adopted it and created a Swahili version of that song.
Oh.
Yes. The producer is telling me we have a clip. So let's listen a bit. Let's see a bit of it.
Never again shall it be that this beautiful nation will again experience the oppression of one by another and bear the indignity of being the skunk of the world. Yaga yaga yaga
Well, you have it, gentlemen and lady. That song is stoking a lot of controversy in this country, especially in the political circles. But the Electoral Commission last year released a roadmap to the 2021 elections. And all this is shaping towards the 2021 elections. Well, we haven't discussed new formation. I don't know where new formation is. It hasn't been launched yet. It was supposed to be launched in December. It hasn't been launched. But the controversy over this song and the religious leaders trying to make their voices heard on it.
If you look at the religious leaders, actually it's so telling about the song itself. Is that religious leaders have been divided into two groups. Those ones who support it and those ones who oppose it. The ones who mainly oppose it are extreme Pentecostal church individuals. Then the other ones, the more ones who are in the kind of mainstream religious groupings, they actually say there's nothing wrong with the song. It's a version which can be used by any other person. We have seen in many struggles in South Africa, the Liberation War, they could use any song, be it from the Bible. We even use it a verse from the Bible to be able to express their opinion. So I find the controversy about this song really worrying and becoming some sort of religious, do you
think that some people believe that? Because I've seen some of those who have headlined the condemnation of Bobi Wine.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, in my view, represent a fringe section of the born-again Christian movement.
Yes.
So, do they hold sway? Do they?
There's one of them actually who was involved in that clip. He's one of the pastors.
Yes,
Pastor Bugembe. And he came out later and said, I didn't even know what I was doing.
Did you believe
him? I didn't believe him. Pastor
Did
Bugembe, at his age and understanding.
You have to understand, sometimes the body defeats the spirit. The spirit is willing, but the body is weak. That's what we are looking at, Pastor. And his
yes.
response. Because by the mere fact that the person who asked you to come and sing is Bobby Wine, you knew what kind of trajectory you were on.
Exactly.
But also, everybody who knows music production or any production would know that you do not just sing your part. You know how the transition. You
and
have
they
to
give you
listen
the lyrics.
before
They give
and
you
after.
the lyrics.
So there's no idea that you did not know. He was not sleepwalking into this song.
No, actually, when I saw the song and I saw Pastor Bugembe in it, for me it was another dawning to say that people who lead religious congregations can actually for once come up and stand for what they believe in, if they believe in anything, and actually say what they think. So I thought, as a pastor, coming and participating in this song, it would redefine the way we have been analyzing Uganda's politics and in relation to.
But Charles, the contestation about
religion.
this song is actually not the song or usage of the sound or which is a biblical point. It's the words that are used. We will pass through this. We'll go through fire, and we'll put on a crown at the end of the day when we have won. So it's a political statement. So the fight is not about if Bobby Wine used different words. There wouldn't be a contestation, but the contestation is the words that he's using. If I was clear with, if I were him to prove the point, I would redact and remove the words in politics and put in other words.
You parody.
And you parody it, and you see if people will have complaints about it.
No, but I think what I also found interesting, Charles, is the fact that when you look at the video, Asmani Basalwa is there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Just you need to see it. Asmani Basalwa is a Haji, he's a Muslim. Wearing that gown, for me, when you say that there was a political message, because I was thinking now, people are having a lot of argument about, the song, and you're not seeing the people that are there. Actually, I started I watched it a number of times just to sort of get the feel.
Yes.
And then after Pastor Bugembe came out to make his complaints, and I'm seeing Asmani Wasalwa. Is he thinking he's wearing a lawyer's gown, in this, or is he in a church? He's a Hajj. So for me, if I had any issues, that was the starting point for me. If I was looking in that. But I think it's more the lyrics now that...
Ona, your former boss adopted a folk song among the Banyankore.
Penkon.
And created it into a hit song leading into the last elections. Penkoni. And I think the last I checked, they were patenting it. Securing copyright.
Yes, copyright.
Yes, copyright for it. I think there is a claim for compensation for it. So
the originator.
Where's the place for this?
First of all, it's an open secret that the religious groups in this country are not exactly apolitical. And they happen to command a lot of following. In fact, that makes the politicians actually jealous and suspicious. So I'm not surprised that they are getting drawn into something that is political, but of course giving a religious interpretation. Of course, the government is very sensitive to people power, Bobby Wine issues, because of their supposed appeal to the youth. And the use of music, it is so devastating because it's something you cannot actually control. You can stop them from holding a rally or even a concert, but everyone is now plugged with earphones, they are playing on their phones. So once music is a very emotive and powerful tool. Of course,
and this is very danceable.
The NRA used music the NRA guerrillas use music as a rallying point.
Yes,
because it makes people overcome pain and really transports them to some imaginary
future
that
we are living in.
I wouldn't be surprised.
The Minister for Security, who is a singer, is in trouble.
I wouldn't be surprised if some of the religious people on either side are definitely also under pressure. If someone is disowning, because the state is powerful, so it can make you eat your words. So this is politics.
I think it's
of course.
As you referred to apartheid South Africa and the struggles there.
Yes.
This is not the first political song to come out.
All those ones, they like NRA, those are the things they are using on a daily basis. You go to but the national anthem of most of the SADC countries.
Moto Wawaka was for the soldiers who were in the struggle.
Of course.
Not for the people outside.
But what did it? What are the lyrics of the song? Do you remember them?
Yes.
So it was encouraging them.
Yes.
So even
because it was recounting the victories they had made at that time, gone through at that time, and celebration. And you would only sing those in liberated areas or in the bush.
But even other people.
But those were different circumstances. Yes. We are not under a war. This is a fairly, liberal environment where you can sing, even if the song is banned, you can still afford to sing. And this is not the first time people have used religious songs in struggles. Dr. Martin Luther King led the civil rights movement in America, and there were songs like Go Tell It on the Mountain. A lot of black Americans, black people in the Americas adopted the very Bible that had been used to subjugate them for centuries. They used those songs to actually uplift the people and to flee the slavery and to fight for their liberation. So this is nothing new. Anybody who wants to make it such a big statement, I think they want an attention of the higher leader as we approach elections. This is really politicking. It is not a religious issue. It's a political question.
Yes, I have seen others have also tried to make new songs. Suna, there is a musician called Suna, I think. He also outed one praising Museveni is my president, my leader, my liberator, something like that. He adopts.
But his is not banned.
No. He adopts the beats used by. He adopts the beats used by Lucky Dube.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's a reasonable song as well. You can listen to it and try to follow through. But Kasim, I want to come back to you. No, the shaping of today's 2019.
Yes.
We already have a roadmap to 2021, and we're a very political country.
Yes.
We start debating politics from day one up to the last day. I don't know when we stop to discuss other things or to do other things. How do you see the shaping of the run-up to the 2021 election playing out?
Well, one, I think we've had, for the first time, the Electoral Commission coming up with a roadmap, which I think in a lot of ways, I think provided two tricky situations. One, it provided ample time for people to sort of know what would happen when. And therefore questions would be raised adequately in time in case things don't happen according to the map, according to the roadmap. But the roadmap is also dependent on availability of funds, which they've asked for government. So the roadmap was not just a roadmap for its sake, it was also saying this is what we need to be able to make that happen. So it will also depend on how the government handles that. But going forward just means there's almost 4 years that we have actually, 2019, 2020, 2021. Oh,
we have
very
actually
close,
2 years.
Just 2 years.
Yes.
But 2 years is adequate.
Because the timetable starts.
If you consider, for example, people who have had 2 months to organize an election, we have 2 years. I think
the Electoral Commission headquarters got burnt.
Yes.
I think
the ballot boxes.
All materials.
With materials disappearing.
Yes.
So at least we have 2 years to be able to put in place. Unfortunately, we have some laws, some recommendations that came from the Supreme Court following the elections in 2016, which have not been put in place. Laws take forever. There has been a backlog within not only Parliament but also, at the level of executing these laws. And the Electoral Commission is also saying that is part of the problem, that we were going to find ourselves near to the goalpost, and yet we haven't had these necessary changes that need to happen. So these 2 years, I think, are going to be very, very critical, but it will also be very important for Ugandans, if at all, actually, we are looking to a transition, because I think whatever happens elsewhere now provides hope in one way or another. Hope in terms of if they've done it wrongly, then we think we can do it better. If they've done it well, then we think we can copy. So there are lots of lessons for us to be able to sort of pick along the way.
Kasim, why are you hopeful? What if the roadmap
Why should he be hopeless at the beginning of the
I know I have 2 years, which we've never had before. With all the previous elections, I don't see a situation where we've had a clear date that people are going to vote in February, and on May 14th, the new leader is sworn in. You have 90 days where now contestations can happen, which will be different from Congo.
No, the reason I'm asking that is, can't it be necessarily done like that, left like that, for obvious reasons that it will drag on, then a month after, then we start.
No, I'm hopeful because I haven't seen it happen. So I'm saying we have 2 years to get it right.
No, actually, for context purposes, the Electoral Commission, no matter who's been chairman of that Electoral Commission, has always given a clear plan on what they plan to do. They have given clear budgets. They have always written a paper to the government of Uganda, the line minister, of electoral law changes that they need
Prior to
after
the
every single election.
And then what happens?
And then what happens? It gets somewhere, everybody forgets about it. Then a few days to the start of the timetable,
Yes.
the actual timetable now,
Yes.
dictated by the Constitution, you see people scrambling. And then the minister goes to Parliament and says, no, you know, we don't have enough time to do these electoral law reforms.
Let's go ahead.
Let's postpone them to the next
election.
quarter. You arrive in the next quarter, and what do you see? You see a emergency bill. And it's quoting the same Supreme Court that turns into law very quickly with a lot of resources. Whatever the Electoral Commission said is forgotten. I need to give, Kasim will not come back to you. I need to go to Rosebell and Honor and Dismas for just a last comment on the issues we're discussing. We'll get out of here.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have the 2 years, but also we know that it's 800 billion we need for this roadmap and to have that election, which is very, very high figure compared to the current, you know, we have a debt to pay hanging on our heads, and although the minister thinks we are, you know.
We are.
You know,
you haven't seen the video that's been created out of that.
Yeah,
It's
so
actually
we need to be
refreshing
worried
play.
about electoral financing, even if you are, you know.
Halim Abdallah, who's a journalist with the East African, did a calculation and said if you add administrative costs,
Yeah, it's
it goes to
1.5.
over a trillion.
Yeah, it's a
1.5 trillion shillings
Yes.
to run that election.
Yes.
Honor, your
Well,
word.
the elections are like, they are more like a wedding preparations. At least the groom is known, so it doesn't matter how long it will take.
How about the bride?
I don't know.
And the groom is your former boss.
This is gender insensitive, obviously.
This must, let's hear it from you and we get out of here.
No, I do believe that it's good, like say that we have the roadmap, but my question is always whose roadmap and how is it going to be crafted and managed towards 2021? Basic, I think the calculations are being done and it's just a question of time and we'll have the same old story coming up again.
Thank you very much, Dismas Nkunda. Thank you very much, Onapito Ekomoloit. Thank you very much, Rosebel Kagumi. And thank you very much, Kasim Kaira. Thank you very much to you all our viewers for joining us tonight and always, and especially those who give us feedback and each one who watches the show. Thank you very much to the production crew that stays up late to deliver the show to you. This show, the debate, continues on our social media platforms, on Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp, and whatever other social media networks you're on. And there will be a replay of this very same show on Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock. So if you've missed this, you can tune in, but there will also be a version on YouTube that you can watch back. From me, it's a good night.